go ahead and choose the High School U.S. History program to look in a bit more detail at each of the program's components. The two most important tools for the teacher in either of the social studies programs is the pacing chart and the teacher CD. I want to differentiate this red program CD from the yellow CD that comes in our classroom sets. The red CD has everything that the yellow CD has on it, which is the ability to display individual sections of the student course notes. But it also has more components, which are necessary for the teacher to use the program. A thumb drive upgrade is available in cases where teachers do not have the ability to run a CD from their computer. The pacing chart is really the roadmap that the teacher uses for the program. The front page of the pacing chart just has images for each of the items as well as your materials checklist, so that when you get your program, you can be sure you have everything and you know what each of these titles or names refers to. Also, you can see the cost of the different programs, as well as, importantly, replenishment options for the consumable materials. On the back of the pacing chart is an overview of what each of those program materials are and reminders before you begin each lesson. The meat of the pacing chart is visible as you open it up. In the case of high school U.S. history, there are a total of 30 different lessons, and so the pacing chart is very substantial. The grade 8 social studies program, on the other hand, still has the same content on the front and the same reminders and descriptions on the back, but the pacing chart consists of just 20 lessons. The next item you may notice in your program is the Quick Start Guide. The Quick Start Guide provides an overview of basic use of the student course notes. We also have training videos available specifically for the student course notes, and we highly recommend that you view those to get the most possible out of these valuable tools. DynaNotes student course notes summarize the eligible TEKS with definitions, descriptions, explanations, and examples. The grade 8 social studies program includes student course notes which are 6 pages long on a trifold like this. Due to all of the additional TEKS required to cover high school U.S. history, this is actually a 10-page fold out. Now, some of our customers find it easier to navigate the high school U.S. history program if they cut off pages 1 through 6 from the remaining pages. Of course, you have 2 things to keep track of now instead of 1, but it can be easier to find pages 7, 8, and this fold out of electoral maps, different congresses, whether they're red or blue over the years, and famous quotes from presidents, as well as numerous social, economic, and other statistics. In some cases, your programs may come without the cardstock student course notes and at a lower price because your campus has already received a digital subscription to DynaNotes content. Let's take a look at what that looks like. If your campus has subscribed to digital DynaNotes, then there's no need to get the printed notes because you have the same information digitally. This is an iPad running the DynaNotes Plus app. You can also access the same information via our web access. There also is an app for Android devices. So if we look at progressive era reforms and politics, we have the same section of content that is available in the printed student course notes. So here you can see the progressive amendments, the 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th. And here is the same information in this section of content of the DynaNotes. One additional feature that you get with digital DynaNotes is access to pre-linked resources from the World Wide Web. So for example, in this section, you can go to primary sources, you can go to other summaries. Let's go ahead and look at some political cartoons that are available in the government archives. Of course, all this information is available without the DynaNotes app, but it's really handy for students to have these links available right from the section of content to which they apply. Let's take a little closer look at the card decks. Now, we have here for grade 8 social studies the 5 card decks: colonial era, revolutionary era, early republic to Jackson, westward expansion and reform, and Civil War era. For high school U.S. history, the program is divided into 8 sections, and so there are 8 card decks: growth and the Gilded Age, progressive era and rise of world power, boom to bust and FDR's New Deal, World War II, Cold War and the affluent society, civil rights, the 60s and Vietnam, Nixon to Reagan, and finally, post-Cold War to present. Now, for both programs, high school U.S. history and grade 8 social studies, there is detailed information on the reverse side of the pacing chart, where the bottom portion gives considerable space to exactly how to use the AmeriMatch card decks in the way that it is assigned in the pacing chart. So I'm not going to go into the details of how to use it now. I do want to take a quick moment and make sure you understand, perhaps by looking at one card deck, what these cards consist of. Let's look at the progressive era and rise of world power. There is an instruction card that comes in the program, but we can ignore that because there's much more and better information available in the pacing chart. The answer key will be used by the students, as it enables the students to resolve for themselves which letter card goes with which answer. And now let's just take a quick look at the cards. This is card A. It consists of a photo, a description, and question, and it must be matched to the Alfred T. Mahan card. This card is similar for Sanford B. Dole, but there's a hint provided. Again, a historical photograph and some text description and questions. This Teddy Roosevelt card is a little bit different. Here we have a bit of a web diagram, but the central thing or person isn't known. But we know that trustbuster, reformer, conservationist, promoter of strength, and the details under each of these apply to this person. And so the right answer is Teddy Roosevelt. The reason I'm showing you these cards is just to give you a feel for the variety. This is a political cartoon, and the student has to analyze the cartoon as well as read the text to determine that William Howard Taft is the answer. Here is an outline about the progressive presidents, and the correct answer that is missing from the outline would be Woodrow Wilson. And of course, he's the president that the additional bullet points were provided about that describe some of the things that Woodrow Wilson did while he was in office. A Venn diagram for Susan B. Anthony. Another Venn diagram. And here, the requirement to analyze the cartoon as well as understand the importance of the Spanish-American War. So we have a timeline, some examples of propaganda, some more historical photographs. And I hope that you can see that there is more than just a simple low-level matching game taking place here, but rather We have a set of cards that the kids think is a really fun game, but truly requires them to know their history and to be able to think critically about these examples. To give you just a quick idea, the color cube is a useful tool for doing a deep dive on a single topic. For example, this is a deep dive on George Washington, and the main face will be who? George Washington, and it has a famous quote. And then the student will need to put his background, accomplishments, an example of the type of person he was, an image that relates to George Washington, and his importance in U.S. history on each of the faces as described. Now, this isn't necessarily an assignment from the program, but it just gives you an idea of how the 6 faces of the color cube can become like a flashcard on steroids, if you will, because it takes a look at a topic from many different angles. Now, replacement 10 packs of color cubes are available. I would encourage you to use the program, use the color cubes your first round through, and decide if you want to replace the color cubes. Certainly, you can tackle any topic with an essay or a different approach without having to do the artistic construction project required by the color cube. That choice is up to you. Additional color cubes are available in 10 packs for $23.95. The next item you may notice in your program is the student activity book. Let's take a quick look at it. Certainly, most of the student activities are going to derive right out of this book. The high school U.S. history program has 90 pages of activities. There are 51 activities, but many of them are multi-page. And you'll be able to see quickly by glancing through that there's a lot of variety. Now, this is a program consumable, both for the high school U.S. history program and for the grade 8 social studies program, which is a bit shorter. This program is 66 pages. So you have 2 options to replenish the 30, 20, or 10 student activity books you get in your 30, 20, or 10 student programs. One is to get a reproducible for use by one teacher only. For high school U.S. history, this is just $79.95, and for grade 8 social studies, it's $49.95. However, most teachers who use these activity books to completion would much prefer to get more student activity books instead of having to make copies and their student experience being loose sheets of paper instead of a book with their names on it. So the option there is to get a 10-pack of student activity books. So instead of a teacher's reproducible, you can buy additional 10 packs. And for high school U.S. history, that cost is $115.95 for 10. And for grade 8 social studies, it's just $89.95. So a little less than $9 per book, or a little less than $12 per book at the high school level.